Yeah, and just checking this out, it does look like it's going to be the Druid Priest matchup for our game number 1 here. And here it is the 2 of Druid from Jarla, and then the 2 of Priest from Jarla. Apologies, most Druids are 2 of right now, not too many Highlanders knocking around. And looking at RDU, he's going to be piloting the exotic Mount Seller like 2 of list with the addition of that Omu. So do you have any, because there is just these different variations of Druid, even if just a small differences. What do you make of like, the 2 Mount Seller, maybe the more consistent version of this list to go up against Priest?
I do like this build. I would almost consider this build like the baseline for a survival druid, and then you can adapt from there based on exactly what you're expecting to see. Minus the Living Dragon Breath, I suppose, which is RDU doing exactly that, and just looking to tilt it a little bit towards Mage. But I do think Exotic Mount Seller is a card that we just kind of forgot about for a week or two after the expansion came out, right? And we were doing all of these new and exciting things with Druid. Kael'thas was available for Survival of the Fittest and hadn't received the second nerf yet at that point. So people were doing very, very different things. But I think Mount Seller coming in did make a lot of sense as soon as that nerf hit. And I think it might have just been correct all along with how powerful it can be in a lot of positions.
Yeah, it is one of those things that happens right as we enter this game with the meta and new expansion. Players like to try out different things. We even saw the aggro token druids for the first few days, but then you do have to sit back and once you start thinking about it as what is the serious competitive version of this deck or this class? What does it look like? I think winding back to Mount Seller is probably correct in most circumstances. But here, going up against the Priest, RDU has access to some. A pair of lightning blooms there, but no actual permanent ramp, whereas Jarla does have at least an okay-ish curve coming together with this 1 maker and then into 4-drop, 5-drop.
Yeah, the 4-drop isn't ideal as a 4-drop anymore. Long gone are the days where you could play Cabal Acolyte on curve and actually feel good about it.
Sol's still upset about that.
Damn, they nerfed the wrong card, Raven.
What is
Nerf Wave of Apathy to 0 mana, I'm telling you.
Oh, Jarla looks like he is really heavily considering this Pyromancer instead of the, I think, expected, like, just 1 maker on 2 play. This does actually just put more power on the board, and honestly, you aren't really expecting to Pyromancer down many Druid boards at all. So I do like this, just puts the most pressure on.
Does indeed. RDU responds in kind by spending his mana. Big fan of that. Use up the Bog Beam. Make sure you're not taking a beating from the Bloodfen Raptor through the early game. Jarla just going to play out his curve here, essentially using his 1 maker as his 3-drop. Draconic Studies looks very attractive to me this turn.
Yeah, and I was already considering the implications of Pyromancer first. It has been killed, which means it's already in that raised dead pool, but I feel like it's a target that Jarla does not want to hit, and I wonder how much that's going to impact him either playing raised dead next turn or not. Is he considering Mass Dispel, you think?
Jarla's considering everything. Is the answer to that question. It's generally what he does. He's a very slow and considered player. And he will go through these cards systematically one by one and try and think of the applications of them. But I'm very much on Draconic Studies with the hand that he has.
Yeah, I think Draconic Studies is the go-to card out of the 3. But Mass Dispel does have some niche uses in this deck that does buff a lot of minions, right?
Okay. Just drawn on the wrong turn there for RDU. It's a little bit awkward with the mana that he has available.
Do you just do it anyway? RDU's makeup is the 1 Teacher's Pet double Thresher double runner, and it would give him a decent chance at hitting at least 1 runner. There is a target for that card as well, so it would increase his card draw if he hits it.
I think I like holding on, just breaking it up. Like you overload for 4 to get it to come down 1 turn earlier. I'm not sure how valuable getting it to come down 1 turn earlier is. Especially since this is around the time of the game where Priest is actually going to start developing threats. So you can actually just get full rush value out of the Guardian animals potentially on the next turn as well, which thankfully is exactly where RDU has ended up.
Oh, now he does have the Mount Star, so he has like the full 7-cost package right now, doesn't he, of exactly what he wants. And he is going to double Bloom and go into Ysera instead.
All right.
Going to take a turn off and then go for the Overflow, I guess, the follow-up.
Well, even Guardian Animals still, right? If he goes dead turn here, he'll have the dead turn on his 6-mana turn, and then his live turn again will be on turn 7. So if he Guardian Animals into some Twilight Runners, he's very much in business there as well.
That's true, yeah. I think I assumed, maybe wrongly, the Overflow because I guessed the Ysera would actually survive that long. I think it would be odd for the Ysera to actually die by then, so I wondered if he just wanted to heal it up and get more value from the 4/12.
It's fair. I think generally with Guardian Animals and Overflow in your hand, you like to cast Guardian Animals first, though, because otherwise you just start overflowing into your beasts, right? Drawing them naturally.
In a perfect world, definitely, you want to get those beasts out before anything else. Another spell. Desperately looking for those waves of apathy, especially because there's a Cabal Acolyte in hand.
Yep. But RDU is a simple man, unbothered by such woes as your opponent actually having the answer for your plays, Raven. It's never happened to RDU.
I'm very excited to see if this Mass Dispel pays off or not. Honestly,
yeah, same actually.
I'm pretty hyped about to see if this does anything, or I feel like it's going to win the game or it's going to never get played. It's going to be an extreme card. Also, if there is a wave of apathy, this Inner Fire could just like solo RDU right now if he gets hold of a wave of apathy.
That's the problem. Like RDU putting the Iron Bark on it as well. Like he's just increasing the power of the wave of apathy target. It's a risk, right? Because you didn't see it get stolen last turn, but you also saw your opponent spend all their mana and generate 2 more 1-cost spells on that turn. So if either of those 1-cost spells were the missing piece of the wave of apathy, then you could still get hit by it this turn, even though you didn't last turn.
Also, Jarla can just bail out at any point here and say, okay, Shadow of Death, now that it's buffed. And just get rid of it pretty easily.
Yep. It was kind of a weird-looking Iron Bark to me, I will confess. Not sure what the need was there.
I wonder.
He just wanted the... I guess he could have just traded with Hero Power, right?
Traded with Hero Power,
Instead, yeah. Didn't actually need to.
Like you said, you make it a death target, you increase the value of the Cabal Acolyte Wave of Apathy combo. Hand space isn't really an issue, even if you're intending to overflow on the following turn, even with that 1 extra card in your hand. And you have Exotic Mount Seller with that Iron Bark about to cost 0 on the following turn as well.
The best priest card in the world, Crimson Hothead, now in the hand for Jarla. I'll not hear anything else.
Was it Warmer yesterday that was farming? Warmer the farmer?
Whoa, okay. That's a lot of card draw.
It's a lot of dragons, most likely, as well. Soul Mirror locked and loaded for Jarla, though. Ready to answer this if the dragons are symmetrical in shape. Or you just don't draw any. That's also fine. Wow, okay. Unlucky.
Just building up to it, Sol. he's going to get there.
Yeah.
So with a Mount Seller, Nature Studies, and an Innovate next turn, it means RDU can get towards building up a big board. Finally, the Wave of Apathy turns up as the Ysera has been dealt with. Typical.
Yeah, but having not found any dragons just yet, it does start to get slightly awkward for RDU because you don't really want to fill a bunch of your board with 3-cost beasts and then not have those board spaces available if you start drawing 3, 4, 5 dragons in the same turn afterwards. So I imagine with Survival of the Fittest in his hand, he doesn't really care too much about which minions he sticks as long as he's sticking minions.
Yeah, and if he lands on the Nature Studies last, he can actually set up the survival for next turn as well.
Right.
Here, though, I do wonder, because of that fact, because of this looks pretty slow, if this was just a Cabal wave turn, just take the Twilight Runner away from RDU. If you miss the dragons then, make sure he has the best chance at missing them again. while still pressuring on board, pushing damage. I don't know, it
Yeah.
looks pretty solid to me. My lord.
Hevard's Falcon's toxic, dude. Calling it. Alright, finally, here they come.
Sick.
Pretty poor start, though, yeah. Unfortunate.
Extra innovate, though.
That was a big deal. Not sure if you can double bait survival here, because I think the threat of Murazon from the other side is just too high. Especially with multiple discovered dragons in your opponent's hand.
And most importantly, Jarla just has more minions, right? Which means he's immediately going to get the benefit of that.
Yeah.
I still like the plan here, just to go Mount Seller and then end on a potential Nature Studies. Worst case, if he doesn't, he could cast Nature Studies before the Vate, and then just say, well, I can use this spell, or you can just save the Vate anyway. Either way, without a broom in hand, I think he needs to do something about this board, or at least attempt it.
Could just be Guardian Animals, right? Guardian Animals end on Nature Studies?
Thresher and Teacher's Pet exactly left?
Yeah.
Ooh!
Oh, he's doing it. He's going to get rewarded as well, because the punish I was talking about is just absolutely not there.
Murazond off the top 100% of the time.
That's his RDU we're dealing with, Raven.
Oh, close.
He doesn't get punished.
At least there's a steal option now for the Azure Explorer.
That's true.
It's like Cabal, Hothead, and then Wave. Oh.
It's an enormous tempo swing, yeah.
Yeah. And RDU, yeah, he's got Survival of the Fittest, but he's only on 17 health. He gets to push 4 this turn.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Mass Dispel for the turn after. Oh, yeah, I like it, actually. I'm talking myself into this play now. I was the one who thought about it.
The smart part of Raven's brain is just slowly having to convince the overwhelmingly much larger dumb part of Raven's brain that what he said was actually a good idea.
Your mind is not your own. You've got me fired up.
Yep. When you're in the same wavelength as Jarla, something has to be going right.
Yep.
It's going to get the steal. The swing on board, as you mentioned, is huge here. And RDU, I guess, in a roundabout way, kind of still punished for that slow tempo play on board.
Yeah, to an extent. I think that's fair.
Also, the taunt placement is actually too bad at all.
Yeah, positioning very nice, just using small minions as buffers, although this 2-4, I guess that's always putting the Azure Explorer on the right-hand side after the steal. No real way you can change that. This Guardian Animals now is an enormous swing turn straight back from RDU because he still had that Lake Thresher available. And now if Jarla can't fight back very quickly, this might get messy.
But
there's another
does the job.
Soul Mirror does do the job, yeah. Always a great interaction with the Lake Thresher.
There's even the renews to heal up the Teacher's Pet he'll have.
Yeah, they came out of the Guardian Animals in the bad order as well, right?
Yeah. Really big deal, because if that was the other way around, Soul Mirror looks significantly worse. And Soul Mirror generally a card you need to save for, you know, the dire situations. Full Druid board, full of dragons or something, buffing coming, so on, so on. But I think with this, it does look good enough as far as I'm concerned.
Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? This is
Get a Spelkin ticker, please.
unacceptable.
Mass Dispel? I am honestly shocked that this isn't a Soul Mirror turn. My point being is, I get saving it because there's probably scary turns in the future, but is there much of a future if you just have a massive a massive teacher's pet on board.
Scribe. Well, here's the issue: is Jarla hasn't seen a broom yet. There's still 2 remaining in RDU's deck. There's still 1 Lake Thresher unaccounted for, and there's still 2 Mount Sellers unaccounted for. So any combination of those 6 cards that I just named can easily swing the board back the other way, and then dragons start appearing, and you don't have a Soul Mirror anymore. Like, I can appreciate Jarla wanting to stretch out his resources a little bit further here.
And by resources, you mean 1-cost pre-spells.
That's all he has. Yeah, that's all he has.
And he has other cards that generate 1-cost pre-spells.
Yeah.
That's like his 50th Spellkin this game, and he's still got 2 in hand.
Yeah, I think that's in. I think in hand is Spellkin number 6 and 7 this game. Yo, Insta Griffin.
My hand is full.
I get.
Might have wanted that one.
Yeah. And I guess this was my worry for not mirroring last turn on a guaranteed good Soul Mirror. Is now this is a bad Soul Mirror, in which you might just die next turn.
It is, yes.
Which, that was kind of my... Like, I definitely understand holding on to it for something better, but it looked so good. He just has a massive teacher's pet at the end of that turn.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think of something pretty magnificent here to get out for this.
Shadow-Word Ruin, single-handedly, gets the job done, and he's got multiple opportunities to fish for it.
Does he? All I see is opportunities to fish for 1-cost spells, so...
Well, what if those 1-cost spells are renew, as multiple of them are already?
So I think they're still only going to offer him 1-cost, or renewal offer him a Spellkin somehow.
Okay.
Wave of Apathy helps.
is a big deal, yeah.
Also, just one reminder that RDU is just playing the single survival of the fittest, so there's no chance at like a second one on an already built board. Okay, just playing the one-up.
Jarla just sticking the huge board of his own by leveraging the Wave of Apathy.
Yeah, this was really nice.
No dragon found for RDU is very nice here, though. Obviously, he would have liked 1 exactly, but there are 4 Dream Portals remaining in his deck, so there was a decent chance that he actually overdrew there due to board space.
And I did say there wasn't going to be a second survivor of the fittest, but not strictly true with the nature studies. Okay, it's true.
It is true. Power of the Wild's still not bad here, though. Starfire is okay, but again draws a card now with a completely full board, which I'd probably like to avoid doing. Make Jarla deal with the situation first.
Yeah, I think he's really... I think he really wanted just some small card draw, because he just needs the broom for that Thresher in hand, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. He's gonna
trade first.
I feel like he's gonna have to draw here.
Should trade first. Okay, right. I was worried he was just going to play it then.
Okay.
Let's get a reasonable chunk of removal, actually, considering those minions are pretty poor. The Power of the Wild doing huge work there for him.
Right. There's 1 Dream Portal. 2. Still 2 remaining in deck. Alright, not too bad in the end. Did miss a potential Ironbark there due to rope considerations, but RDU felt like he had to panic because the way the Wave of Apathy resolves means that those going back full attack on the next turn, the Jarla, so he had to try and clear up as much as he possibly could. The Ironbark maybe could have been useful there towards the end, but Jarla kept his cool, and in the end, that Soul Mirror Raven that he saved ended up being the winning play. You called it a bad Soul Mirror, and it certainly was in terms of clearing. But what Jarla saw was the opportunity to just set up the counter-lethal,
right.
Using the kind of unique interaction with the Wave of Apathy, copying minions, but then obviously the definition of next turn is rather loose at that point, and he's able to get his full attack minions back after RDU being able to unable to clear them on his own turn.
Yeah, there was a potential pitfall for just holding on to that Soul Mirror for maybe a bit too long, but the Wave of Apathy he got there did dig him out of that one and has led him to that 1-0 lead. So already RDU has lost a game. The curse has been broken, I guess, somehow. And it means that Jarla does have a chance. It is doable, but there's plenty more to go from here. So Druid and Mage left for Jarla now. The Druid, again, is that Malygos Druid, and the Mage, the tempo one. So still some questionable matchups here, as RDU does have that Rogue, which I think for me, I don't think this is ever going to go away until the archetype goes away, but it is just, can RDU get a win with the Rogue against these two decks?
Yeah, and I think he's in relatively good spot to be able to do that. He does have the Vendetta package back in, which can help him out in early tempo battles, with the Mage, if it comes down to dealing with Shambhala or something like that. And it also is a card that supports big questings and big Edwins in the early game against a deck like Druid, for example, where that's more important. So I think he's in a reasonable position with that deck, but it's interesting having seen him have his own ideas about what the Rogue deck to go to was, to be switching off the very stealth-heavy version onto the secret-heavy version with the Vendetta package this time around. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, because for now it's going to be the Tempo Mage from RDU going up against the Druid from Jarla.
Yeah, and he has cut the mirror image he was playing around with for the first few weeks of the season. But Firebrand is still going to be in there as a nice little extra bonus removal option. But he's going to be going up against this Malygos Druid from Jarla, and Overgrowth already in hand, making it look pretty solid and keeping hold of that Lightning Bloom as well.
Yeah, Lightning Bloom with the Overgrowth already there. Generally, the point that most players tend to agree on in terms of the keeping Lightning Bloom debate. I do think players tend to keep Bloom more in Mali Druid than they do in the other variations as well.
Yeah, a little bit more flexible to just burst something out, or even just in certain matchups, just land an early big drop, whether that's Geppetto, Malygos, Alexstrasza, Ysera, so on. It can be pretty helpful, because you just don't have as many tools to actually just play out in the game you do in some other matchups.
I like this from Jarla. Moves his dead turn into a position where it's unlikely he's going to want to be doing anything anyway. He can just hero power on his 4-mana turn, and then gets him nice and quickly into the point where he can actually start developing some threats of his own.
Yeah, and with the late Thresher in hand.
Clutch Moonfire. Clutch Moonfire.
Yep, snap choice as well, probably the fastest decision I've ever seen Jarla make. With that Moonfire, but it does mean he does open up that Thresher just to play out on curve. We can see, of course, RDU is just sat with that Devolving Missiles in hand, so he's ready for something similar to be able to answer it to. So both players just having pretty solid openings right now. Oh, the choices now. Everything's up in the air.
I like the Twilight Runner. It's going to get punished by the one-off Devolving Missiles, but outside of that one card, this is just better. Like, you just don't give your opponent a target to interact with, right? Which is what they want to do. This is around the turn where they really want to start shooting spells at your minions and potentially setting up a Cyclone turn or a big Apprentice turn or discounting their Mana Giant, whatever else it is. So outside of just the extra card draw, which Jarla does kind of need here because his hand's very clunky, I think just having the untargetable effect of the stealth is just superior here. But again, he's going to get punished by that Devolving Missiles.
Yep, it is just better in general. Now we're going to see Jarla's response. Yep, the wins every time. And devolving down to a 2-2. Very manageable. Oh, wait, hang on.
It's kind of good, though.
Those are dragons.
Yeah, you have a dragon in your hand. +2/+2. Wow, I'm sure that will have an enormous impact in this game in like 4 turns' time.
I mean, right now, Jarla kind of has 4 turns as well, because RDU's not exactly cooking on gas right now, is he?
Jarla, you madman! Are you doing it? Are you actually fully breaking the RDU curse? These are some very RDU top decks you're putting together this turn. Moonfire to deal with the spell damage early, and then the Crystal Power to deal with the Sorcerer's Apprentice? Insane.
Now he just needs to wait 3 more turns. And he's got another good play.
There's a 6/14 Goose in his hand. Absurd. Yep, use that, break the counterspell. Cleave the lab partners, hero power the face. Your turn.
This makes me laugh when you suddenly turn into play-by-play Sottle. It's great. Cards and things, hero powers, cards
Only
and
really,
things.
only really happens on those turns where there's nothing to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Like Jarla's bluffing options in his hand right now is all he's doing. He's just trying not to give the clear read to RDU that his hand is just unplayable minions. So he's just bluffing that he actually has some options that turn, but he absolutely did.
Yeah, for example, you see the Nature Studies might have just been a safe play around playing Guardian Animals, right? Because if it's not counter spell, you can still play Guardian Animals that turn. So those options are still there. RDU, though, does get hold of some card draw, and is at least stumbling towards the Power of Creation play, which it looks like his next biggest powerful turn.
So many
Yeah, he's still going to get goosed before that happens, though, the way things are going at the moment.
You know, Overgrowth doesn't really look that appealing either, does it? Because that's just like -1 card draw he could have later.
Yeah, it seems better as a card drawer at this point, because whether you ramp or whether you don't ramp, it looks like you're playing 9-drop into 9-drop with the current hand, so the ramp doesn't actually achieve anything.
Oh. Big news for RDU, though. You've got to make some pretty solid reads on that one.
Yeah.
Basically, any of the combo minions, would you say, is a fair assumption?
Yes. Not Geppetto, though. I don't know if you're including that. Obviously, Geppetto would have
like
just
the
got
actual...
insta-jammed.
Yeah, no. The actual, like, turn I kill you combo minions, I guess.
Yeah.
So you're looking at Omu, 9 drops, Germination.
Is it cold in here? Or is it just me?
I feel like I want the
like-
14 health this turn.
Yeah. I was gonna say exactly the same thing. Like, the Alexstrasza dies so much more often,
Yeah.
and this allows you to potentially, like, Alex and then push.
Yeah. Oh, never mind. He's back. He's back. Best player in the world, ladies and gentlemen.
Polymorph every day of the week.
Hard draw. Yep. Every single time. Never any doubt.
Oh my.
Good outcome. I'll still call that a good outcome. Pretty damn good outcome. Oh! Ladies and gentlemen, RDU.
Wait, what? Did he get the Malagos as well? And he's got... Oh, he got the Alexstrasza! Oh, okay, he made it a 1-1 at the end. That's a little bit worse.
Oh, so unlucky.
Yeah. I feel like it's a little bit of a shame that the Malagos got sapped, because this Spellwing would have been the ultimate tank there, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. Wait, is it now Alexstrasza instead? And then next turn have the Ghidra to punch through the taunt?
I still like it this way around, I think. Again, even though it's not the 14 health anymore, still having the 12 health there is pretty valuable. Whoa, that's just BM. You hear him? Your feeble magic? You know who you're dealing with on the other side of that board?
Yeah, Goose that just got zapped.
Yeah.
A charming composition.
Pexis. Pexis goes face. Alright,
I was looking at Counterspell. He knows there's one Moonfire gone, right? One Moonfire, one Crystal Power gone.
Yeah.
So I think there are limitations on what cheap spells Jarla can have. One Nature Studies as well, right? So I don't know,
Sure.
cheap spells to burn into this counter spell. I do like it.
Sure.
Miserable, isn't it?
It is. It is indeed. Like, even just a swipe pickup here would at least let Jarla start taking charge of this game.
So many contradictions.
Nature speaks through us.
Oh! Disgusting.
You have legendary skill, my friend.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Oh, unbelievable.
Right. So 11, 13, you need 3 missiles to go face, you have spell damage, you have a lot of Ray of Frosts to start carving through this Mally.
Right.
8, 5, 2, cram session to draw. You even need to.
I think with Mally dead, he's just putting himself in a position where even if it's not lethal this turn, there's just not real outs for Jarla. Once Mally's gone, right? He knows there's no swipes there because they would have been used. Probably.
That's fair enough.
He knows there's just limited options. There's no brooms in the Malygos list, so there's no way you can even rush stuff on board to help out. I think this is just good play from RDU. Don't go for the fancy lethals. Just make sure you win.
Counterspell up yet again on this turn. Guardian Animals draw. Get out! Boom! This is RDU's world.
Like,
we're all just living in it.
RDU does manage to even it up off the back of... he did have to dig himself out of that just a little bit. Jarla did, of course, just have that Malygos down. And it was the threat. Even though he didn't get those cards to support it quickly, we can see without the counterspell there, without some other options, there was card draw coming for Jarla, but it was just too late. Not only did the Prime get drawn, but the Prime into the box, which then just wreaked all kinds of havoc there. So RDU, whether it's the God's will or not, did manage to win that game there and even this up over Jarla. And honestly, those are the games you just hate to lose if you're Jarla there, because that just felt so rough considering he managed to stick a Malygos that big.
Yeah, it's going to test your mental game for sure, because everything about that game was frustrating. He hard passed about 3 turns, basically, like just hero powering on like 6, 7, 8 mana. Finally got the big Mally down, and then it was instantly met, not by removal, but by Solarian Prime into Puzzle Box, into Sap. And the Puzzle Box also gave your opponent a Plagued Proto-Drake, and then the Plagued Proto-Drake dropped an Evasive Draconid, which just BM'd your Mally on board as it came out. Like, literally everything, right up until the point where he just started getting counterspelled every turn, would have been immensely frustrating. So definitely a real examination of your mental game here, and just making sure you can stay composed and stay thinking clearly, and I think that's honestly where Jarla excels.
Yeah, and we are moving on to the Mage for Jarla now, hoping to duplicate some of the fortune that RDU had in our last game, going up against RDU's Rogue. So, pretty tricky matchup, and even just looking at the build for Jarla, he is also running 1 Devolving Missiles naturally in his list, which again, versus Rogue can work wonders, actually, especially versus the Rogue that RDU has switched onto for this week.
Except RDU has already demonstrated he dodges missiles like a champion. Doesn't matter if they're arcane or devolving, he'll find a way to dance around them.
Potentially so. Jarla still just got to keep his cool. Honestly, like you mentioned, that game was a bit of a rough one to deal with there, but he's by no means out yet and still has a capability for taking a win and taking a point off RDU for the first time in this round robin.
Your curiosity will be the end of you.
Decent opener here from RDU. Neophyte, very powerful in the matchup. Dirty Tricks, quite often a keep as well. He does toss the Dirty Tricks there. Very, very interesting. Tends to be a keep for me when I'm playing the deck up against just about any deck that's likely to cast spells, let alone one that's going to do so as commonly as the mage does, and when they are on coin, so you kind of have that guarantee of a spell being cast at least somewhat early in the game.
Yeah, the mulligan definitely could have looked a lot worse. I mean, it seems fine, of course. Pharaoh Cat, backstab, were the draws, so it seems okay as the outcome there for that mulligan. But it could have gone a lot worse, so I was also a bit surprised. I'm personally a fan of just keeping dirty tricks because it just feels good to keep drawing cards. The games I see this rogue lose are the ones where it does just starve out a little bit and not really have anything impactful to do on any given turn.
Not to mention it just lines up as an activator for so many things, including, yes, I was about to say Blackjack Stunner, but most importantly Hanar. Like if you were to draw into an early Hanar, it's kind of nice to have kept a secret so you can sort of plan out a curve involving that.
Either with double 2-drop that's playable, not a combo card like Cyclone, Jarla could just use the coin nice and early here to start contesting these minions. Or he could just start with a magic trick. It does feel tough, doesn't it? If he coins out one maker, it gives him 2 1-cost spells next turn to play around with.
I will crush your delusions of grandeur.
RDU does find the backstab here.
Also, the secret for that Blackjack Stun in the form of that Plagiarize now means that as and when he can choose to say go away to a Jarla minion and also just lock in the Plagiarize. It's pretty good.
I do wonder about Neophyte versus Dagger here. I know we did see Bunny Hopper, who is probably the most proficient player of this deck that we see in GM, valuing Dagger quite a lot in the early game. And since your opponent coined 2 on the previous turn, there was a pretty good chance they had something like Wandmaker as a follow-up there. But RDU seems to be very much fixated on the tempo game plan here. Just absolutely playing out minions on curve and putting pressure on Jarla as the mage.
Yeah, and because he got hold of a Dirty Tricks as well, it means that this isn't any kind of all-in, I need to never lose the board kind of game plan. He is going to be able to draw and keep this pressure up. Because right now, Jarla, he has a variety of options, but nothing really looks that great.
Yuck. A little bit ugly.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty confident though, right? With Plagiarize and Dirty Tricks, and next turn he's going to be able to activate this Miscreant anyway, and still gets that dagger up. Still going to feel relatively happy.
I use list 1 ambush, 2 Dirty Tricks, 2 Plagiarize. So the odds say that Jarla is dealing with the 2 spell-based secrets now, especially since he checked on the previous turn for the first secret being ambush.
Now with second secret played, Jarla has to consider whether he wants to just give him a Spell Wing or a Ray of Frost or something like that.
It's so slow though, right? That's the problem with playing around Plagiarize when your opponent is ahead, is that if you take one slow turn, well great. They'll just push whatever damage they have on board and just keep going. Now he knows. If nothing happened there, he knows what these 2 secrets are. Dirty Tricks and Plagiarize. The only other option was ambush.
Mana Cyclone, let's go.
Works against me.
He could go for the ping play, but that is, like I said, like you said, awfully slow. He is going to go for it though, and I imagine he's not going to play a spell then this turn. Just give RDU the minimum possible value from this secret.
Okay, that's hilarious. This puts him right back in the same spot again for the next turn. Pushes the damage.
Now
it hits Spell Lackey. Pretty important actually to hit some kind of resource generating Lackey there, I would say. Dragon Lackey or Spell being the best 2.
And now he doesn't really have a minion to test it with either.
No. It's so tough though, right? Because in Jarla's position, you're like, okay, Things aren't going particularly well so far this game. I'm getting beaten up, but I do have an overwhelming lead on resources. So let's just avoid giving my opponent all of my resources for plagiarize.
Right.
But he just has no way to test that this turn.
Well, interesting. Okay, I wondered like how reasonable like just a devolving missiles was. Because it's not that great versus Jarla. He doesn't have any minions for now. And then it does reduce this board down significantly. If it say hit every minion or whatever, so it does just reduce something down here. It doesn't mean the ping is missing. I don't know.
Does it even reduce it down that much? That there's a 3-mana 1/4 on the board.
Yes. Yeah, I just feel it's the most like throwawayable card, if that makes any sense as even a phrase.
Yes. This is a thing now. This is canon. RDU dodges missiles.
Now the real test, Saul. The real test. And this quest in dodge missile.
Takes the fireball, looking to end the game. I love it. Ethereal Lackey, Pharaoh Cap, I think likely to come out here. Maybe even Ethereal Lackey and the Spellwing, honestly, just to load up another potential arcane missiles.
I was looking at Titanic Lackey, as I always do when Quest Adventure is on the board.
It's getting devolved or it isn't.
So many options.
Linear equation. It's absolutely not true. You're welcome to call me out on that. It's nonsense.
Yeah, I was like, there are many ways that this question with only 2 cards to play could just die.
Yeah.
I think extra health is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it's fair.
And the God King RDU agrees with me, apparently.
Alright, Magic Trick for Arcane Explosion again. I feel like we've been here before, Raven. I feel like we've played this exact game of Hearthstone on stream already.
At least Jarla gets to play a turn this turn, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Now with Spellwing in play, needs to devolve potentially both of them. Never in question.
Does have the Rare Frost, so it's not over yet. Honestly, is this just like Ray of Frost, Mirror Image, and Cyclone down? Probably Magic Trick.
Very possibly, yes.
Works against me.
What Jarla wouldn't have done for an apprentice this turn could have actually gone nuts.
Yeah. Played pretty much his whole hand this turn.
Yeah. And those are the kind of turns you win the game, even in this position.
Right. Oh! Oh no! One card off. Dirty tricks again now.
That's 13.
RDU.
With the fireball, of course.
Yeah,
like
11 more.
Yeah, you could. So Sinister Strike, lethal,
Head crack.
kind of.
You just take head crack, right?
It always
Head crack
gets there.
always gets there. Yeah. Gimmick infringement, Raven. You don't get to say that.
Look, we're a team, Sol.
Yeah, love it.
And now, because of the extra damage, because we can see Fireball, I think this might even be too much for a Sorcerer's turn, honestly, Sol.
Yeah.
I'm scared to say that, but I think it's true, because Counterspell was one of the things. Like, Counterspell frees the board, but with Headcrack and Fireball available, plus whatever spells you want he's going to draw now, it just looks like it's too much too soon for Jarla.
Yeah. I did once play a game where I had a very similar situation where I had Burn set up and my opponent played a spell, and the only spell I could test Counterspell with was Secret Passage, which you can probably imagine the dynamic that creates as you have to make the decision that turn.
That is funny, yeah. But look at this, like, Jarla doing a great job of it, and you have to think, without just that Fireball, okay, there is the Headcrack he knows about, but this is one of those, like, flip turns, right? That you can turn the game around a little bit. He's going to Cyclone now, gain a ton of spells. But it's just, we can see it's just not going to be good enough.
Yeah, it's just not it. Just not it.
And this is where you wind all the way back, as RDU is going to pretty straightforward test this with the arcane missiles and know he's going to get the fireball lethal. This is where you have to wind back, as RDU takes game number 3 here of... It's kind of an awkward thing to discuss, but with those secret turns where you play around dirty tricks, play around plagiarize by not doing anything or doing the bare minimum, I believe there are situations where you have to just deal with it. You say, okay, you have these cards, but I get to play mine first. And can I do it in a position where playing them first is enough of an advantage? Because we saw there, it was back-to-back plagiarize with the dirty tricks as well, which was awkward, but Jarla just didn't really get to play a game of Hearthstone for the first 4 or 5... Well, okay, between like turn 3 and 5. Didn't really get to do anything because he was playing around those secrets. And you do just, if you could reverse time and play that out again and just say, actually, Jarla, just don't care about the secrets. How much different does that game look? And it is one of those where it could have looked a little bit different because with dirty tricks and plagiarize, RD was never going to run out of resources because he had them both.
Yeah, and, you know, loosely the idea is that you want to kind of get some grip on the board by playing minions of your own, but those weren't really there for Jarla. Like, he was going to have to commit to spells at some point. So it was kind of just delaying the inevitable to a point. But I sympathize with Jarla's line. I think I would have done very similar with the first play with the Violet Spellwing. And then at that point, when the second one just comes down again on the next turn, you're just like, oh, come on. Like, now I'm just cooked, right? Like, at that point, how are you supposed to get out of that position? And
don't get me wrong, very tough game there for Jarla to try and manage. So just one of those games. And now keep Sorcerer's Apprentice number 1. Do you keep number 2, Subtle? Is that a bit too much?
Yes, most likely. Unless you are maybe Apprentice Evocation, you might be able to talk me into keeping exactly that hand.
Oh. You keep it on the coin, right?
Maybe.
Just to go even more crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's an arcane intellect keep, though. Again, because this deck can play out in so many different ways, it is hard to judge what the mulligan should be, because intellect gets you more stuff. Stuff is great. The deck may as well be called Stuff Mage, because that's what you try and do every single turn. But you do have early curves. There are 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop to play out if you get hold of it. So there are almost arguments for nearly any mulligan ever in this mage deck. It's very different.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if Jarla is keeping this hand, I want him to play the first Apprentice on turn 2, which he has then promptly done. So I'm on board. Let's see how this one pans out. I think Jarla's line here is logical. It checks out. I think now being able to fill out a potential spell damage minion here with the Cram Session makes this look potentially pretty positive.
Yeah, it has all the card drawing in the world, even if this Cram Session is, I would say just for 2 cards, even though that is by no means a bad thing, of course. The Arcane Insight means he's not running out of resources anytime soon. The trick here for Jarla will be managing his aggressive opening as well as keeping healthy on his card count. Because a lot of the time you can't do both.
Meanwhile, what on earth is going on in RDU's hand right now? This is nonsense on the other end.
It's like a pretty solid bounce cell turn.
It does, yeah.
I mean, it's a big minion, right?
It genuinely does look like a pretty solid Mount Cell turn, yeah.
Well, who would have thought we're here, right? Turn 2. Could
Not
be
me.
a Mount Cell turn here.
Time waits for no one.
I don't know if RDU is staring at his monitor right now. He might just be staring off into the void thinking, am I considering this?
Oh. Okay. You're no fun, RDU. Come on. Live a little.
And now does the second apprentice come down?
Well, the first one didn't die.
Right, and if it's going to be hero power into that one where you get to stick an apprentice again, which is, I've heard, pretty cool.
Yeah. Second apprentice AI for 1, Cram Session for 0 potentially, or you can just spend that mana on the Blood Mage and then play the Cram Session for 2.
Yeah, I think I like the Blood Mage here.
Yeah. A bit of a whiff on the draws for now. Nothing to keep them going.
If for nothing else, just because it's another minion. Still not a Mount Seller turn.
Still not a Mount Seller turn, no. So next turn he'll have 4 mana naturally, so he can bloom, coin, Mount Seller, innovate, have his Mount Seller on board at that point, and then innovate, Ironbark, right? Which I think is probably the first turn he's actually going to go for it.
Way less funny though.
It is way less funny, I agree.
Of the frozen wastes,
Oh.
rise up!
Jandis looks good.
Spellwing will come down. Jarla, I think, just considering positioning around blooms and baits into guardian animals, because you kind of have a pretty narrow perception of the cards that your opponent has in hand right now. So yeah, as I was saying, coin, bloom, up to 7, drop the Mount Seller, try and make something happen from here.
Any rush minion would be huge.
Yep. Bait, bait. Nothing yet. So where does the Ironbark go? Protect the Mount Seller or protect your face?
I actually quite like it on the Death Rattle.
Don't mind that either.
Still puts a lot of health, right? Like, it's still not the easiest minion to just hit through. And then a 4/4 comes out, which he might need to swing the next turn.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm on board with this.
Agreed. Ah!
Jeez.
Alright, pew pew with all the rare frosts.
I'm gonna devolve it first, right?
Yeah. This is always happening. Oh, once again, missiles dodged.
Turn needs to get going as far as I'm concerned.
It does, yeah. 100%.
Threat. Is it ludicrous to suggest Raz? Is that
He's just going to Raz?
Yeah,
Interesting. Or at least he wants to give himself the option of having Raz? Okay, sure. Yeah, he actually gave himself a lot of outs the way he did this. I actually really like this, because he opened up like Arcane Explosion, he opened up everything to potentially just Arcane Missiles, or Arcane Breath, or Brain Freeze. Like, he set himself up in a position where lots of spells were very relevant.
And he still had the backup for the minion play, right? Which is huge.
Yep. Just Breath is a minion. Breath's a minion just because. Discount his Mana Giant by 1 more, if that's even relevant at this point. Pretty sure it isn't. Fairly sure it costs 0 already.
But why not if you can do it, right? Why not? And that's just going to be the game. Wow, series going to 2-2. Now, as Jarla manages to fight back with a strong mage game of his own, and again, just however much the deck can lead to some very either frustrating or silly moments, I do enjoy just watching the different approaches that players are taking. Like you said, it's not common to keep double Apprentice, but the way Jarla played it out made perfect sense. Playing it against Druid, if it doesn't get answered early on, you back up with the second one and just cause like forever problems basically for your opponent to deal with there. And RDU, although he had a relatively early Mount Seller, he did not get the rush minion he needed, whether that was Griffin or Zixor or something like that, to be able to deal with those. Because if that Sorceress is gone, that turn looks significantly weaker for Jarla there. Yeah, I think Jarla must have cheated somewhere in the region of 12 mana that turn. He cast 6 Ray of Frosts, which is already 6 cheat. He cast the Evocation, which is 7 Elemental Allies, which is 8. Like, you can keep going. So 10 plus, I think, is fair. yeah. So if that Sorcerer's Apprentice wasn't alive, it's a very, very big deal. But something that I think we failed to mention with Jarla's plan there, and something that does make it make a whole lot more sense, is that the card Crystal Power is completely missing from RDU's deck. So having Jarla there just curve out the Sorcerer's Apprentice
there's really only one Bog Beam that interacted with it nicely from RDU's side in his deck. So I think actually in that scenario, what Jarla did was incredibly smart and actually very likely to end up winning the game straight up.
Yeah, there is still a couple, like Broom on its own would do with a hero power on that 3 mana cost as well, along with the Gidra. But yeah, there are just way less than there are in other Druid builds. So again, I do like the plan. Double Germination here for Jarla as he kicks off this game with his Mali Druid going up against RDU's Mountsilla. I've yet to see this Living Dragon Breath do work, Sottle. And I'm not on about just in RDU, but just in general, I've yet to see it actually make any impact in the Druid game for now. Maybe it's just going to be the best here as a Spider Tank.
Even then, seems kind of miserable to even play it here, right? Because it's not like you get to hero power the 5/4 next turn. You're playing Overgrowth next turn. Really? Like, this surprises me. It almost feels like it's more value to have in hand just as a Spider Tank with Rush, potentially, like a few turns from now with the Broom.
Like I said, oh, the heal. I was wondering if he was ever just committing to not Overgrowth in taking a turn off and just using the Broom or hero power next turn.
Have you met Overgrowth, Raven? It's Overgrowth.
Yeah, but your opponent is just drawing their deck at this point, which is scary in the Mali version. Although not. Jarla not knowing Overgrowth that well so far in his hand.
No.
What if he just Germinations this?
And just gets deleted by Guardian Animals? Seems suspect.
I
guess you can make the play, right? I guess you can just make the play and say they don't have it. Sure, I guess.
Like, he loses out massively versus Guardian Animals anyway.
Right, but you don't have to lose Germination in the process.
So many contradictions.
I guess with a spare one, might feel pretty reasonable.
If it was his core one, then I would not suggest it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I would not suggest it if it was his main, but it's a spare. And if it's a Mount Seller turn, this is way stronger, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. If it's a Mount Seller turn, that's a good point.
But it's not! Surprise! No.
Okay. Bloom Animals yourself in response. It's a very, very big deal. Jarla's deck does play one Lake Thresher, and there it is. Cleavy boy right back at you.
It's the one thing RDU wanted to dodge that turn, wasn't it? I think pretty much like the one outcome. And we can see as well with the Teacher's Pet in hand for Jarla. It meant that was just that was guaranteed, right? Because he played a runner as well.
Yeah, that was the only outcome. Yeah, one Teacher's Pet, one Lake Thresher are the only beasts. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jarla had that all the time.
Yeah, and RDU reacted kind of viscerally to it, but he knows it's pretty likely, even without the context of the Teacher's Pet being in hand, because he saw the one Twilight Runner. He knows it's only a 3-beast deck at that point.
What's you upset about? I see a really good turn here. Mount Seller. Then you can gain mana up to cast Overgrowth. So it's a lot of minions.
Yeah.
On a more serious note, this is looking pretty rough. Speaker Gidra into Overgrowth feels horrible. It does kill off the Thresher, though, which arguably makes the Mount Seller follow-up better.
Yeah, that's right. Whether you then want to, like, innovate a hero power so that you save some health on your Gidra. It comes down initially as a 5/8, which you're then just trading straight up into a 4/6. Like, that doesn't feel good.
I actually really like that, because there's still Lightning Bloom for the Mount Seller turn next turn, along with Broom. Oh, he's just going to go this way. Okay.
Wow, okay.
Hang on. Like,
That's pretty sick.
What?
That is pretty sick. That's a
knows
pretty
the
insane
pressure's
outcome.
gone. So, it's not like he's got to worry about cleave anymore. He does sacrifice his Mount Seller to the runner, which is the unfortunate outcome for RDU. But honestly, for the turn options he had, that was actually pretty sick.
Yeah, hitting double bloated Python there was pretty nuts. Let's not forget, Jarla is quite significantly behind in ramp this game, so he can't really match the powerful things that RDU's doing. So with that in mind, I kind of like the philosophy of just continuing to do powerful things and hope that you can draw some more powerful things to do over the next few turns, as opposed to worrying about what your opponent's doing too much.
Yeah.
Alright, finally.
Mana. It is available now for Jarla. And that's gonna open up so many more options going forward. And RDU looking pretty rough for him there. Needs something pretty powerful off the top, whether that's an overflow of his own to just regenerate the hand or just something to provide some more pressure for Jarla to be on the back foot here.
It's not bad. It's a reasonable draw on this turn. But he might just end up doing the Gidra Overgrowth. No? Holds on to it. Really valuing that Overgrowth as card draw, it looks like.
It's tough, right? Because it's either you go for a big Gidra that might pay off and win you the game.
Yeah.
Or you... which you need if you go for that. Whereas if you hold on to the Overgrowth, it could draw him into something to actually give him more power throughout the prolonged game. So, of course.
Right. The threat of Gidra was a lot better at preventing this, potentially, though.
He's counting up survival, right?
Yes. Moonfire on the 1-1, though. It's going to have something to say about that. Ironbark off the top is a dead draw. It's okay.
So
it's not the kind of high impact he needs.
Here's my question. Does he actually just Gidra first anyway? I think so, right?
Gidra and then Overgrowth?
Yeah. And just say, well, if I draw something big... with Overgrowth played, it's not like he can overflow this turn anyway. So, yeah, I think
so. He's just a giant aggro druid at this point.
Ooh!
Okay. Now you have to have all the value trades you can possibly imagine. I think that just ends up being, both Gidra attacks in and push damage, and now Survival of the Fittest. The 10-mana finisher in your aggro druid.
I think most importantly, although Gidra looks like the most powerful card, and it probably is in a vacuum for Survival of the Fittest, that Thresher being pretty protected right now is huge. Because it means if this Dragon turn comes out, at worst, RDU can wipe away what you would expect to be a good chunk of the board.
Oh. Omu, Germination, Overflow. Jarla can just go.
In time, you too will be.
Gonna have to.
How hard does he want to commit, though? That's the question. Can just Breath and then Overflow? Or he could just go all in with Germination. Honestly, it looks like an all-in situation to me.
I think he also might need the taunt.
It's fair.
Swipe deals with the Gidra.
Hello? Jarla?
Oh wait. Yeah,
he just spent 2 mana and refreshed his crystals instead of 7.
I didn't
Disaster!
expect it so much. I didn't even register in my brain. Wow, that is a massive problem. He just blew what? 8 mana?
Yeah. Utter disaster from Jarla. Plays his
he just
2
got
taunts,
it locked in his head the wrong way around, didn't he?
Yeah. He does recover, though, 2 taunts, and he spread them, obviously, against the Lake Thresher that's in play. As he has to do to play around the Cleave effect. But you can see Jarla just constantly shaking his head now. That is an uncharacteristic mistake.
Trying to work out if it ever makes a difference to trade the Python in first or not. And what's better, like one larger minion or two like pint-sized minions, I guess.
Would you rather fight one survival-sized Python, or what are you
I'll
asking?
be honest, all I can think about is well, you could like trade the Python in and then buff the 4/4 death rattle, right?
I see.
Comes out. Or he could do it this way around. I was just trying to work out. But honestly, all I can think about is if that Python was playing a different game, it might be called McBloaty.
Hmm.
We're going to see the Thresher get tons of value there, wiping away a good chunk of the board.
He wants the
Shaking
8
head from Ardis.
He's left so much power up in play this turn as well. If he's so fixated on this damage going face, you gotta ask questions about why the Python has remained in Death Rattle form this whole time as opposed to having more damage in play.
I think what he's expecting here is there's 3 trades on board, and there's effectively 4 minions per RDU, right?
Okay.
So if this is just trade, hero power, then he's dead. Right, he wins.
Okay.
We can see, of course. I think it's fair for RDU to not have a read on Overflow in Jarla's hand after last turn. So
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he wasn't expecting the heal.
Jarla did emote, which is actually almost technically another mistake in that situation where he emoted that this is a teaching moment, because from RDU's perspective, that might have just looked to Jarla like he was desperate, and so that he did the Omu play and just dug with the breath.
Might have been the only spell he had.
Yeah.
Here, though, the taunt being a huge deal. RDU now has to push through. He does have Broom, so if he gets another big minion, maybe he can go through here.
A minion of any size, right? The Broom itself is already a 5/5.
Yeah.
It doesn't need much help.
It's more if the Broom can help clear up something else as well, right? Depending on what... Oh, he whiffed. I can tell he whiffed just by looking at the camera. Yeah, there you go. Still has to be, right? At least the Broom lives. Like, these 2 minions still live through these trades. It's rough, don't get me wrong, but it's still something. He doesn't lose out completely here, but Swipe is going to look pretty big.
Yeah, Swipe looks disgusting here, but we have reached kind of weird stalemate where RDU's deck has stopped functioning because he just can't find the resources. But Jarla's deck has stopped functioning because he's kind of thrown away all of his win condition up until this point. He does still have a few more minions he can play out here, and probably just any combination of Mali or Ghidra can seal this game out from this point.
I was going to say, I think I like this turn ending with just Malygos being played, even if he has to use a Moonfire, because then he can use Swipe next turn to just push RDU off the board completely.
Right.
Because he can clean this up pretty easily with just the Mali Moonfire here. So
you can also just choose to continue drawing with like Ghidra Overgrowth, which I kind of like because he still has Dream Portals left to pull as well.
Oh, what about Ghidra? Trade, Ghidra, swipe the minions, trade in the 4/4 with Ysera, and then you have a big Ghidra just sat on full health on board? Is that something?
Sure.
No more niceties. My best day on the job.
Okay, pushing maximum damage. Not left him much time for this nature studies, though.
No. Savagery? Okay. Ironbark! Ironbark off the top for RDU.
Well played.
Well played,
That's just
indeed.
game. Look at the difference in cards, right? 4 cards left for Jarla. 12 for RDU. Does not get the job done. It's going to be the game. That is going to be the series, Jarla. Proving that even RDU this season can be beaten.
My cards are low. How strange.
If these portals ever stop proc.
I bring life and
Alex Straza, Wind Fury, Gidra, all of the sources of damage available. RDU feeling hard done by this game, but I'm not quite sure the full story of his GM season so far really supports the idea he has any right to be complaining about bad luck at this point.
Yeah, still a really close series. You saw there, especially a little bit earlier in that game, if RDU got hold of any kind of resource generation, whether that's overflow or something else, then that game could have looked very, very different indeed. There were some points in which RDU could have engineered the turns a little bit differently to either increase or change the trade values on board, increase damage represented on board as well. So there were some points in that game that could have gone different ways. But most importantly, congratulations to Jarla, because he had some rough games himself a little bit earlier in that series, and he did manage to keep it together and fight back, and just about keeping it together for that Malygos Druid game, getting a win on the board there.
Yeah, it's the kind of game at the end that maybe neither player really deserved to win, if you want to use the word deserved, right. Because obviously Jarla made the really big, obvious, visible mistake. But there was the turn where we were debating Mount Seller plays versus, I think it was Gidra Overgrowth at the time for RDU, where he was clearly debating that turn a lot as well, and then ended up going for a Mount Seller quite late and ended up roping out that turn. That's where those Pythons came from, and those Pythons were given Rush that turn. So RDU could have actually cashed in those Pythons into 4/4s immediately, and maybe had them push like 3, 6, 9 extra damage over the course of the game when he was only a few points off that entire time. So definitely something for RDU to potentially go back and look at there as well.